Welcome everybody to Bugbears and Brews. My name's Brian, and today we are going to jump into part 3 of my So You Want to GM series. Today we're looking at tips that you can use mid-session. So these are tips to help the game flow a little bit smoothly. Going into this though, if you're new to GMing, which I'm assuming so, since this is aimed towards the newer people, there's one thing that you have to realize, which is going into a session. The session is not going to go the way you planned. Your players are going to be having you do unexpected things. They're going to have you improvising a lot. And that's fine because you're going to be having fun doing that. So as long as you're having fun, everything's going to be great. Jumping into actual tips, tip number 1 is roll initiative or turn order, whatever your system uses for combat, determining who goes when in combat. Roll that before you even start talking about story and those kinds of elements there. There's a couple of reasons behind this. First is it helps speed up gameplay because you already have all the knight's initiatives laid out there for you. You can also do your monsters or your bad guys, NPCs initiatives at the same time. You should actually have that there. Second is it helps immersion because you're not stopping the narrative of the tension building up between the surly barkeep and the bouncer at the door, and the people, the drunks hanging out around, to get that bar brawl. You're not stopping. All right, everybody, let's roll initiative. While there's that, I will say you lose out a little bit of that. Some people really look forward to the initiative roll. To me, I found it kind of helps. It helps keep the immersion going a lot better. That being said, I would say if you're going to do that tactic, to always let your players know that just because you're rolling initiatives doesn't mean that combat's expected. It's just help things be fleshed out there. And always request more initiatives than you think you'll need. If you're planning on having 3 combats that night, maybe go with 5 initiatives. Simple enough. The other ones can be dummy initiatives that you use like a simple, like a +2 on your roll. Or once again, I apologize, I can't speak to other systems as far as how their combat tracking is done there, but you can probably figure out a similar mechanic there. The other thing, this is a big one. Don't look up rules mid-session, period. At least you yourself as the GM. What you can simply do, the rule comes up that you don't know, because trust me, it's going to happen all the time. It still happens to me. What you can do is say, you know what, here is my ruling on it for now. Will then correct it. So you can do this in 3 approaches. So you make your initial judgment call and you say, this is how we're running with it. But from there, you have to take some corrective action, because you can't just live on, unless somebody is happy with your decision. But, for the sake of understanding the rules, I either do one of the 3 things. 1, let them know that I will look up the correct answer post-session and then let everybody know what it is for future reference. I'm not going in retconning anything based on what I find about that rule. However, I will put that information into use for future. And I let the players know and say, hey, here's how I interpret it. Remember, this is how we interpret it at the table. Here's really what was supposed to happen. It doesn't matter, but this is what's going to happen now. Second, if you're in combat, you can always turn to the previous player's turn and say, you know what, it's got a bit before your turn. If you wouldn't mind, would you take a quick look in the book to find that rule? It gives the players a little something to do. So that's a nice tie-in there, because some of the players, as soon as it's not their turn, they're jumping on their phones and that kind of thing. So that way they're at least keeping their mind in the game a little bit versus looking at Facebook or something like that. And then the other thing you can do, kind of a similar method, if you're not in combat, you can make your initial judgment, and then you look around and find out who is on their phone, who's not paying attention, and then you pick that person to say, hey, you know what, will you go ahead and put down the phone and look up this rule for us real quick there. So it's a nice way of getting them off their phone and also getting the information that you need. Once again, no matter what method you choose, go with your initial judgment call and then go on from there, and then take the corrective actions afterward. The main thing is keeping the pace of game going. You don't want to stop every time, look it up and say, okay, well, what does that do? The next thing you can do, very simple, especially if you do the cheat sheet method like I have there, like I mentioned in my previous video, is to take notes. Nothing too extensive. You don't want to be jotting out full sentences. But simple things, key moments, you know, I write down things like, hey, who did a really good crit that turned out cool? What were some fun crit misses? Was there any sort of razzing that we did as players or any good jokes? Those kinds of things there. I like to mark that down. If you're fighting a big enemy, something that's memorable, I'll jot down who got the killing blows. Or if I'm playing, we're doing a really big battle and there's lots of enemies around there, I'll kind of keep a tally of who killed what monsters. So that way they can kind of razz each other. The players can razz each other at the end, like, ha, I had more kills than you, or I took more damage than you, those kinds of things there. So that's all some good notes that you can do. Also, jot down those rule clarifications that we just talked about there. And then anything that your party seemed interested in that you didn't plan for. Good instance of this is Broomy. Broomy in my Storm King Thunders campaign is some mysterious 5-year-old that is definitely not a 5-year-old. Broomy something else. And they really took a shine. The party took a real shine to Broomy. And so since that was something that I realized my players wanted to pursue, I jotted down notes like, hey, come up with ideas for Broomy next session. Simple enough. Another good tip, don't be afraid to delegate tasks to your players. Looking up rules, that's a great way to do. If you have a larger table, keeping track of turn order. That's another good one there. It takes a little bit off of your plate, brings the players a little bit of game ownership. They'll get a little bit more pride in it. I personally have never had a player track turn order for me. I thought about it a few times. I just never acted on it. And every time I get done with a really messy session and I lose a turn order or two, I say, man, why am I doing this when I have a player that can help me out there? So that's one of the things I plan on doing at some point. I've never done it. I heard great things about other tables doing it, though. And then the other one that I do at my table, which is players for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, players are allowed to nominate another player for inspiration. I try my best to keep track of who fits their character, who does well role play based on the character, backgrounds or those kinds of things there. However, it slips my mind a lot between a lot of judgment or, dealing with the rules there and tracking my initiative and keeping my cheat sheet and my notes and all that. So having the initiative be a player awarded function, it really helps people identify what each player puts into their character, those kinds of things there. And let's see here. Another tip. This is a don't tip. And this is actually going to be my last tip. The don't tip I have seen as a recent trend. It makes me sad. It's achievements. People get in this video game mode and like, oh, it'd be really cool to have an achievement for who dealt 50 damage in a single blow, or who killed 3 monsters in a hit, or who did this, who did that. While I get the concept of it, it provokes an aspect of gaming that I really don't like, which is metagaming. So what's going to happen here is your party's going to start looking at, whether you share these achievements or not. They're going to start hunting for ways to get these achievements. Oh, I need to hurry up and do the most amount of damage to this little guy as I can to get the overkill achievement. They're fun, yes, but if you're going to have a metagaming table, I'd say go for it. But me personally, I don't like metagaming, so I would say stay away from them. And also, it punishes players that don't play a particular role. Think of somebody who wants to get into a support role or a healer role. They're not going to be getting any of those damage achievements, just like the damage person's not going to be getting any sort of healing achievements or support achievements. Or they could probably get a few of them, but they're not going to get all of them. And so by getting those achievements and having, especially like a lot of times when you see the achievements in a role-play game setting, people like to tie rewards to them. And that's just, it's punishing people for playing their character they want to play versus playing a, an arcadey beat-em-up type style role-playing game. Are they fun? Yes. Maybe do them for like a one-shot. That might be an idea there, but I don't like the idea of them being in a running campaign there. So that being said, I really hope that those simple tips are going to be useful to you. I think they're all really good tips. Once again, I really wish I implemented player tracking initiative. Maybe I'll do that next week. Who knows? I'll cut up my little initiative tracker sheets and hand them to people as we need it. If you found that you like this video, you learned something new, give me a thumbs up, give me a comment. Let me know what kind of tips that you might want other people to know about. And if you like what I had to say and you want to hear more of what I have to say, go ahead and give me subscribe. I'm planning on doing videos at least once a week, or I should say once a week, and then I always have my recap videos once a week unless I'm sick and don't want a game. Now, I did mention playing a game with everybody at the very end. And this is based on a Reddit post I did last week, which is what I like to call an evil GM exercise of Corrupt a Wish. This comes from role-playing games, typically in a fantasy setting, which has a spell called Wish. And what Wish is player wishes for a certain outcome, and the GM then grants it based on how they worded that wish. And so the way Corrupt a Wish is going to go is I'm going to go ahead and say my player wish, and then I want everybody to go ahead and tell me how they would corrupt that wish. And then, to keep the game rolling, what they do is then they place their wish underneath. So you corrupt my wish, and then you give your player wish. And what I'll do the following week, next time I do another one of these videos, is I'll take whatever corrupted wish I like best, and I'll respond to that person's wish there. So we can keep the game rolling. Hopefully it goes well. I think it's going to be fun. So for my wish, I'm going to start really simple, and I'm going to go with, I wish I had $1 million gold in my bank account in Baldur's Gate. So from there, you guys corrupt that wish as much as you want. I'll pick out my favorite corrupted wish, and then I'll respond to that person's then player wish, corrupt that one, and we can go back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth. So I'll tell people how that one, how I'd corrupt that one as a DM. And then I'll give my new player wish, and then hopefully we can keep that rolling there. So talk to you later, guys. See ya.